get by. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I feel like 100 grand.
You are listening to Inspired Insider with your host, Dr. Jeremy Wise.
Dr. Jeremy Wise here, founder of InspiredInsider.com, where I talk with inspirational entrepreneurs and leaders. Today is no different. I have Kesheyl van Schilt. She is the president and owner of Blakely. You can check them out at blakelyfundraising.com. And Kesheyl, before I formally introduce you, I always like to point out other episodes of the podcast people should check out. There's a really interesting one. Kevin Herrigan of Spinia Tech actually started his agency in 1995. So it was really interesting to hear the landscape of agency life, business, the internet through some of these decades. So that was a really good one. Another one was Jason Swank talked about how he built his agency up to 8 figures and sold it. And then he started buying up agencies, and then he started a separate agency group mastermind so agency owners can support each other. So that was kind of talking about the North Star and mission for an agency owner. So that was a really good one. That and many more on InspiredInsider.com. This episode is brought to you by Rise 25. Rise 25, we help businesses give to and connect their dream relationships and partnerships. How do we do that? We do that by helping you run your podcast. We're an easy button for a company to launch and run a podcast. We do the accountability, the strategy, and the full execution. So Kesheyl, we call ourselves kind of the magic elves that run in the background and make it look easy for the host so they can create amazing relationships, create amazing content, and most importantly, run their business. For me, the number one thing in my life is relationships. I'm always looking at ways to give to my best relationships. And I personally have found no better way over the past decade to profile the people and companies I most admire and share with the world what they're working on. So if you've thought about podcasting, you should. I'm biased. But if you have questions, go to rise25.com or email us at support@rise25.com. We also have a lot of free episodes on all the questions we get around podcasting, so you can check those out. But I'm excited to introduce Kesheyl van Schilt. As I was saying, she's president and owner of Blakely. And I guess Kesheyl would describe herself as a fundraiser at heart and actually believes in the power of people and philanthropy to affect positive change. Since she purchased the company in 2013, they've greatly increased in size, and it's really, she gives credit to the team, which we'll talk about culture and hiring and all of that, and also the loyal client relationships. And I like one thing that you said when we were communicating back and forth via email, but inspiring people to make a donation to critical missions that make the world a better place is sometimes the toughest marketing job out there, right? Mm-hmm. But also the most rewarding. There's some good content actually of your team talking about direct response marketing. So we'll get into that too, because this is critical with what you do. But thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
There's a video version, so I'm going to share my screen and pull up Blakely Fundraising, but just tell people about Blakely and what you do to start.
Yeah, so Blakely is a strategic fundraising and marketing firm. We work solely with the not-for-profit sector, and our real kind of I think our focus or our philosophy is that we want to be an extension of our clients' teams. In the world of the not-for-profit, there are big gaps between ambition and resource. There's always this like push-pull between, we want to do more, we know we can do more, and being able to actually get it done, whether that's through finances, whether that's through human resources, skills, whatever the case may be. And so our purpose really is to help fundraisers be better fundraisers and meet those goals and raise the dollars that they need, quite frankly, to serve the missions that are critically important in this world.
How did you get into the nonprofit sector? Because you say it so nicely, Kesheyl. Yeah. I mean, ambition and resources aren't matched, meaning like they're usually overworked and underfunded, I imagine here.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. So how'd you get into nonprofit?
I know. So I think so. When I was young and in school, I was the one who was, running the food drive or the charity fashion show or selling raffle tickets or whatever. And I didn't really know what that meant. It just seemed like the right thing to do. And then I went to university, I was going to be a lawyer like everybody else in poli sci. And then I was like, I don't think this is really what I want to do. So I needed to get a job and I was working on my resume. And that bottom of the resume, or at least old resumes, I don't really know whether they have them on there now, but like the volunteer interest kind of section, I
For sure.
had like this list of things that I had done that were fundraising related. I didn't really know that that's what it was called. And so I went and I talked to my dad, who was serving on the board of directors for the what was called the Raptors Foundation at the time. And I said to him, like, do they pay people to do this kind of stuff, like run events and things like that? He's like, yep. Would you like me to put you in touch with a few people? And so I took it from there, and I landed my first job at Kids Help Phone, actually, which is a national hotline. Well, it's not just a hotline now; it's all online now as well. That serve youth in crisis. So that's where I started, and I fell in love with it. I love the work.
I know because of, I don't know if you call it HIPAA or whatever, privacy, but what was the type of calls you were getting there? Or
Calls. Oh,
at that, like
Help Phone?
yeah, exactly.
Oh, I wasn't working on the service side, but it's a crisis line for youth, right? So you can check them out. It's where they're actually a client today. They're an amazing, amazing cause, helping children, kids, youth with, depression and, suicide, things like that.
So fast forward a little bit and talk about the decision to purchase Blakely.
Yeah, so I have to backtrack a little bit. When I was working for one of the hospitals in Toronto, I hired Blakely as the agency to work with us on our direct marketing program. And I worked at the hospital for a number of years and I was looking for a change. The previous owner of Blakely was looking to hire an account director. And I was like, all right, well, it's still in the not-for-profit, but at least it's a shift out of the charity side, which is a whole other podcast. working for charities. So I joined. I really liked it. I liked the work. I liked the autonomy. I liked working with lots of different clients, the relationship building. And then I had my son in 2010. And during that year that I was off, because in Canada we get a year off for maternity leave. He started talking to me about wanting to sell. And so I thought, well, okay, like maybe I
Was he
could.
talking to you because you expressed interest, or was he talking to everyone in the company about
He
this?
was talking to myself, and in particular, he was talking to myself, and he was talking to our VP of Insights, Jeff Eland. But at the end of the day, he knew that I had the capacity to actually be able to purchase the company. So when I bought it, I purchased the company from him, and then I sold shares to other team members. So
Talk about
there's
that decision to sell
about
shares.
selling the shares. Oh, it was like a no-brainer. Like these were key people that were critical to the business at the time, and I knew were going to be critical to the future of the business. Like my two colleagues, Kimberly Blees, she's our EVP. She kind of leads on all of the thought leadership, a lot of the growth strategies and things like that. And then Jeff runs our insights and analytics, the quantitative side of things. Yeah, and that like those two things were going to be critical to the growth and where we wanted to take things. So having them as shareholders just made sense because then they'd have more of a they're shareholders. They have a stake in the company, right? It matters to them.
with the percentage, I'm curious, Shell, do you decide, okay, I want to actually sell off X percentage, or do you go to them first and say, hey, I want to sell you shares? I mean, obviously they're going to have to put in a chunk of money. What's
Yeah.
affordable for you, whatever. How did you approach the thought about what percentage to sell?
Um, I'm trying to
I know
think.
I'm taking you
I don't
back
know.
like
I don't know if
a
I really,
decade or something.
yeah, over a decade. I think it was just because there had been lots of conversations about it ahead of time before that, actually came to fruition. So I probably came to them with a number and then negotiated from there, depending on where they wanted to go. But like definitely I had a maximum in my mind of what I was willing to sell.
It's really interesting. So when you first started working with Blakely, you weren't necessarily thinking, I want to take over this thing or buy this. And it just, the owner was like, I'm thinking of selling, and then the opportunity arose.
Yeah, that's pretty much what happened.
How was the transition then? Um, I don't know how long the current owners decided to stay, or they're like, peace out, Kesheyl, good luck, I'm out.
Yeah.
Obviously,
Yeah.
there's a good team in place that helps, but what was the
Yeah.
transition like?
So I had become president the year before I bought it. So I had lots of time to kind of like get in there and get more because I said to him, like, if I'm buying this thing, I need to know, like, I know what I'm buying, but I need to know what I'm buying. So, and there were certain decisions that I wanted made before I purchased the company or before I took over. So we agreed for him to stay. He was supposed to stay on for 2 years. He didn't. I think it was just shortly after a year. But I think it definitely helped me having, somebody in my corner and, like somebody kind of backing me up through that. But it's like any situation like that. I think it's really hard for the founder to like, it's a really like it's hard for people to, back away and see like you have this desire that you want them to take it forward, but there's also, this kind of resistance to change sometimes, which I'm very conscious of as the owner. And, like I'm still young, but like, from a succession planning standpoint, like if I do want to stay involved in the company long term, like that's something I might need to go to therapy for so that I'm good at it.
What did you start to do differently once you took over?
The very first thing was financial rigor. Pricing strategy was probably, I think, the agency's biggest problem.
Were they
Um,
undercharging at the time? Yeah.
yeah, big time. There was just no like, again, like homegrown out of a basement, you grow like smart, right? Like, I bought a successful company. I'm not saying it wasn't successful, but there were just, like there were some things that needed to be professionalized about the work, about the operations of the business and what we were doing. So the pricing strategy was very key. The other thing was like, the concept of doing things off the side of your desk. So there were a lot of cool things happening on the side of people's desks. So it was about figuring out what those things were, reorganizing or structuring around that, I guess, and hiring the right people so that we could propel those things forward and making those investments early on. The other thing that I think was critical for me at that time was I had a mentor. So I had somebody who was very much, he's passed away, so I might get a little emotional
Sorry to
talking
hear
about it.
that.
Yeah, it's okay. He was incredible, an incredible mentor, like one of those people who would like just get you thinking in different, like asking lots of questions, getting you thinking about things differently, and then like kind of letting like, and then like off you go, you kind of do things, and then you come back and you're like, okay, here, this is what worked, this is what didn't. And it just, it was a very organic kind of mentoring relationship. Um, and it was both, about the internal stuff, the internal pieces, but also a lot about how we were marketing ourselves and how we were going to market ourselves in the not-for-profit sector. Because that was the other thing that the previous owner, and we marketed ourselves very differently when I took over.
What was some of the, through those conversations with your mentor,
Mhm.
and on the marketing, what did you discover and that the way you wanted to market the company?
Yeah, well, we needed to like not just be standing in booths at like trade shows. We needed to, with like our logo standing behind a thing, like we needed to put like some of that creative energy that we were putting into like our clients' work into our own marketing. It's actually probably it's one of the things that I envisioned for a long time, and it took a long time to kind of get to where we are today with our marketing. But our marketing is basically like about sharing resources freely and widely with the sector in order to make them help them be better at their jobs and at fundraising. Like that's ultimately kind of what the big picture is. And then, we to that like this point, like we don't take ourselves very seriously at the
No,
same time. So like our very first, like, so it was about being I don't know what the word is. Like we wanted to be edgy, right? We wanted to
I
like
don't
so
know if
all the
I don't know why the word sterile, but I don't know if
yeah,
that's the right word, but like, as
yeah,
you could see, that's why I pulled up the website because this kind of speaks to the personality of the company a little bit, where we
yeah,
take your work seriously, ourselves not so much. And then you can see, I always love looking at the about the team page because you can kind of tell a lot from the company about that, right? It could be just everyone has a little bit different structure and personality to it. You could see, just the different expressions and pictures on there.
yeah,
Um, just to see the personality, I guess you could
yeah,
say, right?
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean,
And that
even
was
even yours, right? You're not like standing there, but it's like an in action pose type of thing.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, yeah. And I mean, our very first push after the purchase, the campaign that we did for ourselves was Not Your Dad's Agency. And the reason we did that was because every other major agency player in Canada was not owned by women. So that was kind of that was one of the angles that we had and used at the time, I guess, to our advantage. Given, the industry that we work in, which is primarily dominated by women.
So, we talked about pricing, doing pricing differently, really looking at that and looking at some of the kind of the operational efficiencies and that piece, and then the marketing piece, how
Yep.
you're marketing your team. And then also you mentioned the cool stuff on the side of the desk. Can you give an example of that? What you mean by that?
Yeah, well, I mean, back 10 years ago, digital was off the side of your desk. So like literally, because we were primarily like a print, like with like the communications that we were sending out were primarily print, right? With like a smattering of digital. And we were doing we'd done a couple of pretty cool campaigns, and really wanted to, bring that kind of across the board. Probably like one of I don't know if this is really the off the side of the desk, but like my theory on like growing new services, product offerings, right? Like, so part of our job is to be out there listening to clients and helping them solve problems, right? Fill gaps. So as they're talking about different challenges and different problems, we're trying to figure out if there are solutions that we can bring to the table, right? And sometimes you're creating those solutions at the same time that you're like you're creating that solution as you're like selling the solution as you're, doing the solution.
I'm
Um,
with you.
but that's
Yeah.
because of people, yeah. But that's because of the people, right? That you hire. Like you can't do that by yourself. So, like one of the key focuses coming out of the pandemic, because like the whole like fundraising went bananas during like because people were at home, people had disposable income, there was a massive need in the world, and fundraising dollars went up. You'll also hear people say that they went down because events went down, major gift fundraising went down, but the work that the world that we're in that not-for-profit space, it
Because
expanded.
of medical. You're hearing a lot of medical, is that why?
Um, Medical, the food insecurity, like everything went up, some more than others, right? Food, and then, you follow that with the international crises, like that, what is happening in the world today. And so just there was just so much change happening so quickly. And digital, which have always been around, like escalated, like not-for-profits always like behind the commercial sector. So it really escalated. So everything was changing so fast. And I had hired this woman from the UK. She was a fundraiser. She actually, her, we had the same mentor, and I'd met her at a conference, and I didn't really have a job for her, but I was like, "You're really smart, and I think you can help me with stuff and get some things that I'm kind of doing like off of like my plate." She's created like an out of like, because she's so smart, and out of the coming out of the pandemic, the things that we needed to help our clients solve problems, which is better audience understanding, better product development based on those audience understanding, better experiences for donors, like people who give to charities. She's created an entire profit center in the agency as a result. And like and like not alone, like there's a lot of other people who have been involved in that, but I really think it's about, people have incredible ideas and can bring a lot to the table, and if you kind of let them run with it within the context of the vision and where you're headed, amazing things can happen, right? Rather than trying to kind of like dictate and predict and whatever. Like you just kind of have to go with it, right?
I'm curious. I want to go a little deeper on the better experience for donors
Yeah.
piece and how
Yes.
I'm
It's
just curious where that stemmed from. And maybe you don't even know. I'm just curious if like a client said something and they're like, oh, we need to, because the client probably didn't say, we need a better experience for donors. Or maybe they did. They just said something and your team has said, you know what that really means is we need a better experience for donors. Do you remember like what was the client saying that you came to that conclusion as a team?
I think what the clients were saying, I mean, you look to the commercial sector, customer experience was the big thing, right? And I think, a lot of times in the not-for-profit sector, people are looking, to their experiences elsewhere and saying, how can we apply this here? But really it was born out of the like the analytics, right? It's like there are like we don't think like retention is down, or we're not reactivating it, like not as many win backs, like as, kind of what they call, I think what they call it in the commercial sector. There's not as many people upgrading, or, it's like we know with higher value donor groups, we know intuitively the experience is better. Like if you're going to give more money, you're going to be more known to the charity, you're going to have a better experience, right? So how do you apply some of that to somebody who is making what might be like a small gift to the charity, but might be a significant gift to that human? Because at the end of the day, like it's about the whole, right? It's not just about one donation. It's about the masses coming together to support. Like that's what ultimately affects the change.
Totally. I mean, someone contributing $100,000 may be the same, thing someone contributing $1,000 to that same
Exactly.
person.
Exactly.
Talk about what have you done to help with better experience for donors? Like what were some of what did some of the
Donor
programs look
experience.
like? Yeah.
Yeah. So we base don't so out of the work that we've been doing over the last 4 to 5 years, we basically established I don't know what you would really like. It's like it's surveys, right? So we survey for affinity. So we're surveying donors within our clients for what motivates them? How are they connected? What would motivate them to do more for the organization? How informed do they feel? Do they trust the organization? Do they feel needed? Do they understand what their own donation achieved? Do they understand the impact of the organization? And values connection would be the other thing. So we actually measure these things. And we've been able to establish benchmarks, and we know what things, like which one of those, like we call them donor needs. So they're then like, the need states. We know which ones, along with other factors like favorite charity, like so somebody saying that you're their favorite charity can influence higher value giving, whether that's retention, like giving more frequently, higher value value gifts, leaving a gift in your estate, like a bequest type of giving. So we know what those things are. And so our job then is so say a charity is scoring low on need, for example, in a certain donor segment. Well, then it's about looking at those communications and those strategies that are the communication strategies that are in place, and making sure that you dial that up in the messaging, right? Like, so that's just a very, kind of simple, practical way. There's obviously, lots of other things involved, but that's the gist of it.
No,
So
that helps.
we're very data driven, right? It's not just like, oh, we think this is a good idea, right? Like it's this equals
Yeah.
this plus this equals this.
Some of the top like copywriters, direct response marketers talk a lot about I don't remember if the quote's attributed to like Eugene Schwartz of Breakthrough Advertising, but something copy isn't written, it's assembled. And so he talked about basically they're listening to the customers and using that as the most compelling copy, which just sounds like, okay, you do the survey, you figure out based on the analytics, what are people wanting or needing to hear? And then for all I mean, the charity knows where certain things are going, and maybe they're not communicating that, or the donors
Exactly.
don't feel like when I give something, I don't know where it's going, right? I'm sure
Exactly.
some are all their messaging is where it's going, and they're lacking some of these other pieces, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's kind of the
Um,
gist.
so I love what you said about that. I don't know if that relates to the Heart and Stroke, but what did you do with the Heart and Stroke organization?
Yeah, so we've been running the affinity surveys with them for a number of years. And the insights that, they're able to get out of that. And so we've built a program for their higher value donors, like a platform, like a fund, if you will, that was built out of the insights, and they've had tremendous growth there. They are, like the whole value-based marketing side of things, like connecting people with values. That has been a big focus of the work. We actually just repeated their survey, and their value scores went up, which was nice to see. Like our values alignment, I should say, scores went up. I'm trying to think of some other things. I don't work
Do you
specifically on their
remember,
stuff.
and maybe you don't, because I know you're not in
Like
the
if there's
weeds.
another team member here who
Yeah,
would be able to
you're
speak
not in all the
in
weeds on all
detail.
these, but do you
No.
remember at a higher level what things maybe came in that they weren't communicating? I know you listed kind of what motivates them, being connected, informed, trust. What was maybe some of the tweaks that were made in the campaigns because of the insights that you discovered?
Yeah, I don't know that I'd be able to speak to
Okay,
that with
that's
them, but
okay.
I can speak to it with Diabetes Canada.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, so the donation achievement is probably the biggest one. So again, like you've got people who are making smaller gifts and don't really know specifically what their donation has achieved. So, and it's hard sometimes to bring that tangibility in, because like a $50 gift is not like necessarily going to something uber specific, like there's some charities where it's like it's buying food, it's buying shelter, right? Like you can actually translate the dollar amount. when you get into some of the health charities, that's a lot, or
Yeah,
like even in some of these other causes, it's harder to do. So really honing that messaging and that communication in a way where they understand that what their donation in the context of the bigger picture is actually achieving. So like, we're funding this much research this year, or we're,
I
as a result
gotcha.
of like that kind of thing.
So
There's
it's
other
kind of like it's contribute to this bigger pool, and that's what it's doing, as opposed to your $50 buying 3 glucose monitors to these
which it
patients or
wouldn't do.
something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Right.
Which it would not do.
Glucose monitors are surprisingly expensive.
Very
Yeah.
expensive.
What are some, thanks for sharing that. I love how you think about this because this applies to any industry, obviously, right? And so, um, what are some of the mistakes you mentioned? Obviously, there's digital and I mean, with direct response, you're using it via print and digital. What
Digital,
are
yeah.
some of the mistakes you find people making or companies with their direct response marketing in general? That could be online or offline.
Oh God, so many. So so it's oh, gosh, I don't even know where to start. I think the biggest mistake that people make is when they so in this world, this marketing world, like you've got to be present. You have to be present all the time, and you have to repeat. Like it's like it's like my son. Like I have to repeat things like multiple times for it to like stick it. But like anyone's like that, right? Like you're getting hit with so much stuff. And this like wanting to pull back on things or um like
Like feel like you're repeating
well,
yourself. You're like, oh, maybe we
yeah,
shouldn't
like it's
say
like,
this
oh no, we should
again.
need to say this differently, or we need like reinventing the wheel. During the pandemic, a lot of organizations pulled back, and those are the ones that didn't do as well. Like stay the course. Like direct response is really about it's a not like it isn't. It's a bit of a numbers game, right? And you need to be consistent, and you need to be consistently present for you to be top of mind. And especially like when I said about fundraising is one of the hardest marketing jobs out there. Like, I'm not kidding. Like, you do not wake up in the morning and say, I wonder which charity I'm going to give to today. Right. Like, you might say, I need a new pair of jeans. Okay. That's like maybe a nice to have, but like, you need to go get milk. You need to go get butter. You need to go get food. Right. Like, these are not like charity is not a necessity for people. And so, like I can't come up with like an offer like, oh, today for $29.99, you can save more lives. Like it doesn't work like that, right?
That's a good tagline, though. Maybe you should
Yeah.
use that.
But you can't do that, right? So it's about people's emotions, and it's about pride and generosity for like it's about tapping into those values or those feelings that make people feel good about themselves, like getting like giving philanthropy is like it's happy endorphins, right? But so we're trying to convince somebody that we're going to make them feel good by doing this, right? Like charity is really about problem solution. There are problems, people like to solve problems. So you've got to present the problem in a way that inspires them, that they feel compelled, that they feel that they can actually make a difference, and then put a solution in front of them that makes them feel that there's going to be impact, that they trust, right? And like that combination is like it can be really hard to nail down sometimes.
One of my favorite books of all time, Michelle, is Made to Stick, Chip and Dan Heath. And really the examples they give in that book are all I mean, not all, but a lot of nonprofits and
Yeah.
telling us it's really about direct response, like telling a specific emotional, personal story as opposed to this general thing.
Yeah,
Right. And so I learned a lot
absolutely.
about, I don't know, not just direct response, but nonprofit, but just like you said, tapping into those emotions there.
Yeah.
Do you have any favorite business or leadership related books throughout the years, resources? No.
No, I'm not. I read like a lot of like blog posts and articles and things like that. I'm not like a really sit down and read the whole, like I read that what was that one? The Good to Great or whatever. Like that one kind of sticks
Jim
out.
Collins, yep.
Yeah. But no, I'm not like I have a lot of, people outside of the not-for-profit industry, in my life who I use for, guidance, direction. My father was, a marketer. And so I feel like I learned at the kitchen table over the years.
What did he do?
Do you know the, drugstore chain up here, Shoppers Drug Mart? No, so it'd be like is there still People's Drug in the state or like a Walgreens? Like it'd be
Of
like
course,
Walgreens or
Walgreens. Yeah.
CVS or
Yeah.
whatever, right? So
Okay.
it's the big national drugstore chain. It's now owned by Loblaws group of companies, but yeah, he ran all of their marketing and eventually became president and then retired. So yeah,
Did
he's a brand guy. Like he's the one that, came up with like the loyal, like, him and a team of people, right? Like not just him, but he led and directed some pretty cool brand marketing for that company. Like it's
through
pretty
osmosis, I'm
awesome.
sure you learned
Yeah, I
at
think
the
so.
kitchen table
I think so.
marketing. Do you remember any of your maybe favorite advice from your dad from a business or leadership standpoint?
Yeah, my favorite advice from my dad ever, I still quote it to other people, is that you can only control what you can control. And so focus on that because everything else will just make you spin. And then I think not like direct advice from him, but just watching him, people and relationships, right? Like that is critical to not just your success like while you were in business, but like he's been incredibly successful post business because of those relationships.
We were talking before we hit record about growth and about dealing with growth. And one of the ways, deal with growth is especially, I don't know, hashtag agency life is people, more people. So I'd love to talk about the hiring process and a little bit about culture. You've
Mhm.
hired a number of people recently. What's the hiring process look like?
Um, so like detailed hiring process or like how we
Whatever, yeah, whatever you think is beneficial.
well like depending on I think like the key thing with the hiring process is making sure you're really clear on like we're fortunate that we're like right now the roles we're hiring for are like repeat role. Like it's the same. Like we're not creating brand new roles and going out into market. So we kind of like we know the role that we're hiring for. I think again, it's about getting it out to the networks, right? Like so you do your regular posting. We sometimes, depending on the role, will go through a recruiter. It just kind of depends on like there's a bunch of different factors that go into that. Like the type of role, how recently did we just hire for that role? What did the pool of candidates look like? We rely heavily on our networks of people. Like, so a lot of the roles that we've just recently hired for, like we hire from within the fundraising world, like the fundraising space, because like the more you understand kind of not for profit, we have found in our hiring over the years, they're the more successful um team members moving forward than when you don't have that kind of experience and background. A lot of us came from client, like we're on a, like worked at a not-for-profit at some point in our career. Not in
Someone with
every
the
department,
industry
but
related
yeah,
experience. Yeah.
yeah, it definitely helps. We were our hiring. One of the things I'm really proud of is that our hiring is actually, so we anonymize everything so that we can eliminate as much bias as possible. And we hire, now that we're fully remote, we hire from anywhere in the country, which is also fantastic. So it's really opened up our like the pool of candidates that we can access. And at the end of the day, I think it just makes the talent a lot better.
How have you been able, when you're hiring 9 or 10 people, how do you streamline the onboarding process without going crazy? What is the
Going
onboarding
crazy.
process? Yeah.
Yeah, so we have a pretty cool onboarding process. And the history behind our onboarding process is that we had a really shitty onboarding process. for a very long time. And so we do offsites with our, even like before we were remote, we would do offsites with the team. And we had an offsite. So this was before we all went remote. And we did this like, I can't, it was like an exercise, like a team building exercise where everyone, half the groups were given, okay, act out or do some kind of presentation on, do some kind of presentation on a good client or a good employee onboarding experience, and then that other half had to do a negative one. And it was so funny because all of the crap that we like weren't like the crap that we were doing or weren't, or the stuff that we should have been doing that we weren't doing, all got highlighted in these hilarious skits,
What would
right?
be an example?
Oh my God, I don't even know if I remember. I don't remember. It was like everything from like your computer wasn't set up to like your, you show up and your manager's not there. You're like standing in the, in the office. Like it was just like overload on this, overload on that. Anyway, so it basically changed the whole onboarding process. And I mean, I meet with all of the like so the entire I think it's the leadership team. I don't know if the management team does as well, but we all meet with all of the new hires like within the first three months. I don't really know what the details are on like what actually like kind of happens in the, with the I just know that like there's things in place in a process and we have a human who actually manages it all. So it actually gets done properly. And people are the feedback that we've gotten has been pretty positive. We also implemented Blakely buddies. So you get buddied up with somebody outside of your department to actually help kind of guide and mentor you through your first few months at Blakely, which can sometimes be very overwhelming. And then our Amy, who leads on employee experience, she meets with all of the new hires at 3 months just to sort of check in and see how things are going. So, and there's like a whole bunch of other things that happen, but we've actually been asked by clients to come in and share how we onboard because it's pretty solid.
That's
Training's a
great.
whole other story.
So at least they're probably get assigned to someone in their department. They're taking them through whatever specifics they're going to need for their job. They meet with the leadership team, each leadership team within the first 3 months. Then the head of the, customer client or team happiness meets with them in 3 months just to check in. They're assigned a buddy within from a different department so they can kind of, open up with questions or feel welcome and navigate everything else as well. So, okay, cool.
It's pretty good.
So first of all, thank you. I have one last question. Before I ask it, I want to point people to blakelyfundraising.com. You've seen it as we've been sharing it. If you have anything you need, check out the website. It's really fun, and I encourage you to check it out anyways to see the personality and how they do things. Last question is kind of on that same realm, which is about culture. I know culture is very important. What are some of the things you do, especially in this remote world, to maintain culture with the team?
Yeah. I really think culture is just about it's about the way you act, right? Like it's not like it's not a process. It's not like a set of things that you do. It's like it's embedded in how you and like everything you do, how you work, how you think about things, how you engage the team, what you talk to the team about. Like I spend so much time thinking about like how like communicate like how to communicate certain things to the team, like what's the best way to communicate X or Y, like whether it's like exciting news or whether it's challenging news, like just thinking that through and putting yourself in their shoes and thinking how can we be the most transparent and build that trust. And at the same time, like how do you be approachable as a leader and how do you make sure that other leadership team members and managers are approachable, right? Like, it's, like there is no open door anymore because we're all, online behind scenes. So how do you kind of build that consistent kind of fun? But then also how do you set expectations, right? So like our entire performance management system is based on values. So it's about how you, not just what you're doing, but how you actually do it, right? Like I don't really know how else to sort of put it because it's so fragile and it can get screwed up very easily if you're not paying attention to things.
Totally.
Like it's constant, like it's every day, right? It's every day living the values that you say that you're expecting from your team, from yourself, and actually doing that. And then when you misstep, like owning it and moving on, right? Like it's those actions that I think
Yeah,
matter.
no, I love how, the performance is based off of, goes
Values.
back to the values,
Yeah.
right? Because if someone at least learns to live it, and maybe if they don't know it, but if that's what they're, measured on the values, then that gets reinforced every time there's performance reviews or
Exactly.
anything like that. Well, Kesheyl, first of all, thank you. Everyone check out blakelyfundraising.com, more episodes of the podcast, and we'll see everyone next time. And Kesheyl, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sailing right now. I'm feeling like 100 grand.